Well, a late good afternoon. It's around May 4th, and we are going to plant our first sweet corns of the season. We're in zone 5 of southern New Hampshire, and you're probably saying, wow, planting corn that early, but well, I got a few things I do to cheat the system, to move things along, and let me go explain to you. I kind of jumped ahead of myself a little last night, got a little excited and didn't give you a shot of setting up the bed. But what I basically do, each one of these raised beds are already mapped out by where things are going to go. And this is basically going to be early corn, which is by Harris. It's a sweet course, untreated seeds. And what I'd like to do is like to plant the corn on raised beds 1 foot increments, 1 foot every square, so basically do 6 across. I took the plastic and I'll show you I did that in a moment here, but basically 6 across and every foot going that way, every foot going this way here. And so what we do is I very simply took and had some regular old plastic and actually edge it into the corners like this. Use a little edger, garden edger, and just push in like so. It gets nice and tight. That way the wind won't grab it and blow it away. It does get windy. And then from there I went ahead and did little X marks every foot. Actually, this is leftover from last year. And then later on I will plant, as the seeds start coming up around the Memorial Day weekend, I'll plant pumpkins in every one of these little spots here all the way up, so we can get pumpkins in between here. Then as the corn wraps up, pumpkins start growing out the sides and then continue on. Once again, the interplanting method I like to do. We also use a spun polyester netting, which I'll put on top of the corn plants after they get planted here, and that way it keeps it nice and warm for germination, because corn does like around 60 degrees or more for germinating, which I believe it is. The soil is. Just by feeling it, you can feel it's pretty good and warm. The plastic's been down all day long, and I knew that would help warm things up even more. But it's been kind of a mild period now. Going to next week is going to get a little cool, a couple nights, but the polyester will keep the heat in and keep the seeds from going bad. I'm not too concerned about it. They're not going to germinate that quickly. It takes about 5 to 6 days to get the seeds popping up. So we'll go ahead and get started with planting the seeds. And what I like to do is plant these guys inch and a half, and I kind of rotate, so I make sure I get a good selection of plants going here. I do like 1, and then go ahead and do 2 there. And you just pop them into the holes as you go along, and the soil is plenty moist, so we'll start down below it. So we'll start germinating pretty quickly. And I do go ahead and water these things, you know, throughout the season as they start coming up. Keep them nice and moist down below. You do have to be careful not to let the corn plants get burned if these get too closed up. So I do kind of pull them back and make sure that as the corn comes up, they've got room to get in there and get going. So with that, this is a 67-day corn. We should be picking this corn by the middle of July, I'm sorry. And we'll been doing this for years this way. I'd say over probably about 34 years I'm planting it this way, and I always had good success. Of course, the other challenge is we got the large woods out back. I have seen deer coming through more recently, but they always seem to leave the garden alone. I've had a few problems with possums and porcupines. We do get our woodchucks, of course. They tend to go for the cabbage families, the brockies and such as that, beans. But we also have a few problems with skunks getting into the corn too, but we try to use other methods to keep them out of there. Sprinkling some stuff around that tends to help, and if we have a problem with that, we'll get into that later on. So that's how we do it, and I'll continue getting this planted. Okay, we're just finishing this up here, and we'll go to the next step, which is basically putting the polyester down. A lot of times people say, hey, you know, I don't have a lot of room to plant corn, but you know what? Corn likes to grow in a block system. So that's why, if you look at this here, I did 6 going that way. I planted 7 rows up to here. I'll plant a couple more days the rest of this and just finish that off. It won't all be in plastic because I don't care about rushing the rest of this. A couple more days I'll plant that off, and then we'll finish the last part there. And it'll come a little more slower. That's fine because then I start other corn and a couple other beds out here. But anyways, corn likes to grow in a block, and really I did 42 ears basically within about a 6 foot by 7 foot space, so it doesn't take a lot of room to grow sweet corn successfully. The next thing you want to do is we want to get down this polyester, which will help keep it from like I said earlier, it's spun polyester. It can actually hold temperatures down to about 28 degrees. Holds the heat in a little better during the day also. This is already pre-cut off a bigger roll, and just run it out here. Got these little neat pins. I don't know exactly where you can buy most of these pins online. They come different shapes and sizes. Some are like actually like a hoop also. And I just put this guy out here. Like so. I can kind of span it out so I can cover up all 6 rows pretty well. And as this doesn't stay on forever. Once it starts coming up, plants start growing. I'll watch the weather, make sure it's not going to get a sudden drop in temperatures. And I'll just gradually kind of loosen it up a little bit as it starts coming up more over time. And then it's just ready to, as it gets warmer towards end of May, it's pretty well pulled off by then. And that way we can make sure we can get corn usually by the middle of July. And corn's one of those things that are just everybody loves, looks forward to. And once again, providing the farmers don't help themselves, we should be in good shape. So that's how simple it is to plant corn. And we'll be doing a couple other things later this weekend. Looking forward to getting some more hives set up for bees this weekend also. And looking further out here, we got fruit trees in bloom. Asparagus is coming up. We'll do more of a review later on as the weekend progresses along here. Hope you enjoyed it, and please feel free to hit the subscribe button if you want to see more of my updates.